Welcome to the Mike Abadir Show. You'll want to sit tight this hour as host Mike Abadir and co-host Gino Bacola talk to the experts, celebrities, and figures from the worlds of sports and business of sports. We cover the NFL, baseball, basketball, soccer, and horse racing, so we have all of the bases covered. Now, we just need your participation. Here is your host, Mike Abadir.
Welcome to the Mike Abadir Show. This is your host, Mike Abadir, and I'm alongside Gino Bacola, and this is our Breeders' Cup preview show. We have four great guests to help us break down all the Breeders' Cup races. We have Emily Gullikson, Matt Dinerman, George Ortuzar, and Craig Milkowski. And Gino, after a great World Series, we're about to be treated to the Super Bowl of horse racing starting tomorrow at Del Mar and with the big races on Saturday. And I'm going to suggest that all the listeners get down to Del Mar or your local track or OTB or open an ADW account, turn on NBC or TVG, and enjoy the best wagering opportunity in all of sports. How are you feeling about everything, Gino?
I'm glad it's Breeders' Cup because I won't have too much time to vent on the Dodgers this morning. Otherwise, that would have been an hour-long show of me just kind of crying, going over.
I knew you were going to go there.
All the woulda, coulda, shouldas. But you know what? I do think the Astros just played a little bit better. So I'm glad that we can just kind of focus, move on to the Breeders' Cup. We can talk some racing, and at least you didn't open up the show this morning by choking. I did hear you packing the chew though in the intro, so I'm a little proud. We're taking baby steps here, but
yes.
we gotta rock and roll because we have four guests, and we're gonna try to get through all of the races and at least kind of touch base on a bit of them. So our first guest, and get this, Mike, I think she should be doubly proud because you and I didn't even realize this until about a week ago. We haven't had a female guest yet on the show. We've had, about 12 weeks through the show. We have not had a female guest. So our first female guest, she is a great follow on Twitter at May Hemily, MAYHEMILY1. She is an awesome handicapper. Once you follow her, you can really tell immediately she knows what she's talking about. She does great work for Optics. And what I like about Emily is she's a real trip handicapper. She handicaps races just like I do. She watches a lot of the replays, and I love the trip notes and stuff that Optics has. So really excited to have Emily on the show because this is kind of the first time that her and I have ever had the opportunity to interact. Emily, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I'm honored to be the first female guest.
You're the queen of the show.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Emily, you're on the drive right now over from Arizona to Del Mar. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes to pull off the side of the road and talk some racing with us. So let's. I'm the type of guy. I want to go straight to the dessert. I want to go straight to the good stuff. I want to go straight to the feature. Let's talk Breeders' Cup Classic, the big race of the weekend. An interesting one with a horse like Arrogate coming in. You have some question marks because he wasn't quite himself in the couple races this year after such a monster end to last year, beginning of the year. What's your overall thought on the big one, the Classic?
Yeah, I think that's where you have to start your handicapping is with Arrogate, and it for the most part a lot of the chatter is it's sort of a matchup between Arrogate and the very informed Gun Runner. And, between those two, and I did a write-up, I'll kind of send it around. I'm siding with Arrogate. I thought his last race was a good race. He's moving forward. He's looked good in his gallops. He's looked good in his works. It's not even just that he's beat Gun Runner a couple times. This is his distance. It's a local barn, and I think that he's really the horse to beat. I'm not super excited to bet him. Like last year, I was against California Chrome, and I really thought kind of the same thing. It was a 2-horse race, and him being the second choice in wagering was a really fair bet. And with Gun Runner, he's an awesome horse. Distance is obviously a question. It always has been. It's always one I've had. I followed him doing the trip notes since his career began as a 2-year-old. And it's just the type of trips that he's been getting. I just don't kind of see that shaking out in here. And then with the added distance and a short price, I couldn't pick him. He won't be on my tickets, not even maybe a saver. No, I just, it's not for me. If he wins, then that's okay. So yeah, that's kind of where, between those two, where I landed.
And I love what you just said too about Gunrunner, because one thing so many people do when you're playing exotics, and we've got so many opportunities to make money. If there's a race where there's a horse that's 2-1 that you don't like, just chuck him. You just chuck them. There's just we get too defensive sometimes when we're playing favorites or playing horses that are short prices. You can get defensive when you're playing a horse that's a middle to a bigger price. But if you can, I love what you said. Gunrunner is a horse that you necessarily don't like in this spot. So for you, it's not worth using a few extra bucks to save with a horse that's going to be 2-1 that you don't love.
Right, and that's and that's more on the win end, right? Because let's say Arrogant wins and Gunrunner runs second, like that's just not a bet I'm gonna make. So whether I end up playing it kind of in that manner, I don't know, because it's tough because Gunrunner could easily run second. Arrogant could easily win, and I have to decide whether I want to bet into that. I did, so kind of one of the things I mentioned in Hannah in an article I did for Forbes is that, if it isn't Arrogant and I don't think it's Gunrunner, there's a few horses in here that are just kind of tosses to me. I think Collected is very talented. He's going to have to sort of be running up there with Gunrunner, so that could be problematic, but, he's a solid horse. Like, I love the way he looks in the morning. So, people like him, I could see that. But I'm interested in War Decree, and I understand that it's a stab. But looking back at it, I watched his last race, and it was a totally perfect covered up trip. But he just did everything right. The younger, I believe it's a female, O'Brien, just kind of tipped him out in the clear and just kind of shook the reins at him, and he just, he responded. So that wasn't his best, and you just sort of look at the pattern, you're like, well, okay, this horse has been running on turf. Over in Europe, the better races are on turf. Why would they run this horse on synthetic? And so to me, I'm kind of answering that question like, well, it's a prep for dirt. It's the closest thing you can kind of get to it, sort of that same running style. So I think that this horse is well-intended in this spot, and then, being a 3-year-old, he's going to have to prove he's good enough. He's going to have to make another move forward, but I just think for that kind of sake, that's he's interesting. He's definitely well-met in this spot.
Yeah, and he's going to be a big price. He's definitely worth using in some of your exotics. We're here with Emily Gullikson from Optix, talking some Breeders' Cup, just rolling through the classics. So, Emily, you want to go through the couple other races that you've already looked at and did the write-ups for? We can talk a little dirt mile.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have Emily on for a few minutes.
So this is a race that I wrote for Hannah, and I kind of went in depth on that race. Got to kind of pull it up in front of me.
Yeah, no problem. It's race 7 on Friday. Yeah, race 7 on Friday. I know Emily's doing such a great job for us. She's in the car. I'm sure she's got the papers or the computer, or the iPad, or all of. Exactly. If it's like me, I'm old school, so I still got the papers everywhere.
Hey, Emily, while you're pulling that up,
so this race, I think I guess kind of the same, sort of same situation you have with Sharp Azteca and More Spirit. Horses that have faced each other before, and in this spot, both kind of have questions. And really, Sharp Azteca is a similar case the way that I saw Dreyfong and really Gunrunner is. He's been setting very even if the pace is fast, it hasn't been very contentious. He doesn't have like 3 horses sort of pushing him through those fractions, and that type of scenario where he's going to have some other presence is stressful for a horse. And, I just looked through his plot, the Optix plot, which is kind of our pace track. And, it's very useful. One of the things I use it for is I can look back and just kind of see race shapes and see how horses won under different scenarios. And the only time this horse kind of faced pressure like that, the way that I see this race, is, in the Woody Stevens and the Malibu, where, he ran the race that he runs, but just kind of got short late. So I see that kind of scenario developing. And More Spirit to me, pretty similar, but he seems to have a little bit more stick, and seems to be, kind of moving forward a little bit to where, if I had to go between the two, I would lean that way, even though I do have some questions there. But sort of at a price, and a horse that I will definitely be betting is Battle of Midway. I just think this race he's just pointed for it. It's kind of a perfect mile for him. Sort of kind of right. He's got some speed, but he can also stalk. And I think those two setting a pace in front of him, I don't think he's going to get caught up in there. I just don't think he's fast enough to run with those guys. So he'll be able to just kind of like fall right behind a Trip, another local horse, and just looks really well spotted for this race. And I think he's going to run a good race.
Could it be possible that another Baffert runner is a little bit overlooked in Cupid?
I gave Cupid a shot. I can't get super excited about him because he's just kind of like, I think of the word I use, I call him a plotter, where he's just kind of like, he's sort of one pace, but I could definitely see this horse winning. I mean, he puts himself in a good spot and has races that could win. And, if I'm probably not going to make a win bet on him, but if I'm playing like pick threes or doubles or any of, multi-race sequence, he's on my tickets because there's definitely a scenario where he can win.
And that's interesting because, when I look at the Bob Baffert entries, and I was about to jump in and ask you this with respect to the Classic. I mean, a part of this for me is handicapping Baffert. And I don't have any numbers on this per se, but I've noticed, and people say this all the time about other trainers as well, is you take the longer price between multiple entries. But I've noticed that a lot of times Baffert doesn't like his horses to get in the way of his other runners. So he'll keep, maybe two Kentucky Derby prospects on different paths, one in Oklahoma and one in California, that type of thing. And so I kind of have to wonder if he's got four runners in the Classic or the two in this race that we're talking about right now. Does that mean that maybe he doesn't have supreme confidence in his Top Gun?
It could. It's so hard for me to play those what ifs. I mean, Cupid was entered for the Classic, so I think it just kind of came down to like, well, let's run him in the mile. I mean, he's not on the Classic level, and so like, where else are you going to go? You can't really run him on turf. So, I think that this is sort of the next spot, and I don't know if necessarily they were like thinking let's point him for the mile and we don't have confidence in this other horse, but he belongs. Like, he belongs to be running this weekend, and I think this is just kind of the spot. But again, I try to not get so caught up in that because it's a lot of guesswork. Where I'm sort of my handicapping style is I'm just more evaluating the horses.
I think that's why I have a Twitter crush on you, Emily, is because I do the very same thing. When I see you talking about trips and stuff and how much time you spend handicapping and how it's like, well, didn't go on a date this weekend because I spent 75 hours watching replays, and I laugh. I do the same thing. Let's jump into the Filly and Mare Sprint, which is going to be race number 6 on Saturday. And so far, from what I've heard, especially when you're talking about the horses that you're taking stands against, you and I are going to be either having a really good weekend or we're going to be misery loves company together, because it seems like so far we're in the same boat. And what do you do with Unique Bella? This race, I think you have to start at least with her. Are you playing her? Or are you playing against?
It's a tough one because at 9-5, I'm playing against, but I will concede that she can win this race. She's just never been a horse that like everybody gets really excited about her. And to me, like, I've never seen that. Like, I just don't get that excited about her. Even just kind of watching her races, I mean, she's pretty ranked. She doesn't break that well. She's got a lot of speed, but she's got like this type of speed where she doesn't really have like, start and stop. She's sort of just got like go. And not a lot of stamina, and so I think that's why they tried to route her. Like, she's kind of built more like a router, but I just don't think she has the right stamina. So Mike Smith said he's going to go, and maybe she just gets the trip and from the outside and she wins. But at 9-5, she's not the fastest horse in the race. On Optix figures, that's our own speed figures. And on, Optix plot, her Optix plot is fine. It's not great. I mean, there's really no, there's a great in there. But just at 9-5, I just don't look at her and I'm like, yeah, this is, clearly the horse to beat. And there's just so many other ways to go. And, I'm like interested in the 30-1, and it's like the type of race where I'm like, I want to find like a 4-1, 6-1 that's logical. So, it's a really wide open race.
And I think I heard you talking the other day, Emily, when you were recording one of your videos, and I can't remember who exactly was talking with you, but the way that I see this race too, there's not necessarily a ton of one-dimensional speed types. There's a lot of the stalking type horses, and I could really see Unique Bella being floated really wide all the way around here and losing some ground, because a lot of these horses, they want to be close and maybe just pressing right off.
Yeah, and I mean, Princess Karen, who's outside of her, I mean, she's gonna go, and John Doyle, who was on the video with me, and he's the one that brought up that point. Yeah, he, he's like, well, Leparoux, I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm like, she's gonna go. So he and I are gonna have this discussion after the race and see who's right. But she's gone even further outside of Unique Bella. So, if she decides to go, and Unique Bella, she kind of breaks a step slow. She kind of got to get used out of there. Yeah, the pace scenario is kind of tricky, and I think that probably the horse that really fights for it and gets the right trip is the one that's going to win.
Emily Gullikson from Optix, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. Before we let you go, make sure to give us all your plugs. Let us know where we can find you on Twitter, and let us know the information about Optix. And got to already extend an invitation to have you back on again. You were great, and we'd definitely love to talk more racing with you again sometime.
Absolutely.
Sure, anytime. My Twitter handle is at Mayhemily1. That's MAYHEMILY1. And OptixEQ. So that's my website. It's all handicapping information at OptixEQ.com. So yeah, we have a lot of information on there, and would love for you to check it out. We've been live with this product for about a year and a half, in development for a lot longer than that, but live for a year and a half, where we're super proud of it, and just getting better and better.
I've only heard positives from everybody that uses it too. So we're always looking at the grid, trying to find the big square. Who's going to be the lone speed somewhere, Emily?
God, I'm just trying to think of the plot. You're putting me on the spot.
That was more of a.
I'll have to tweet out something.
Yeah, you tweet that out. That was like a rhetorical question. That when I'm looking at when I'm looking at the plot, I'm always looking. Yeah, we're looking to find the big one who's going to be the lone speed, and that's what's great, because a lot of us and a lot of the people are great visually, and so with the plot, it makes things really easy for some of us who are a little stupider and don't want to go deep. Sometimes, like I don't feel like going.
Yeah, or, it's just something to trigger you that you're like, okay, well, this horse looks like the standout, right? So now I have to dig into the grid, like, is this a legit horse? Then you can kind of check and go like, oh, yeah, this horse is legit. Like, this is, this would be my single type of thing. It just kind of helps keep you fresh. This, like, if you handicap a lot and you play a lot, it's really mentally draining. So anything that can just kind of, like, keep you fresh and like cut out a lot of the noise. It's so helpful.
Awesome. Emily, thank you so much again. Good luck in all of your handicapping in the Breeders' Cup. We'll make sure to send out some of your links and some of your write-ups. I've listened to some of the stuff you've recorded already. You always do such a great job. We respect all the work you put in, and we appreciate you helping us out.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Emily. Enjoy your time at Del Mar.
All right, will do.
Okay. Well, that was Emily Gullikson. Fantastic analysis there. We're going to take our first commercial break, and on the other side, we will be joined by Matt Dinerman.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
If you're looking for more information on firearms and the shooting sports, check out Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. Kelly is the owner of McMillan Fiberglass Stocks with over 40 years of experience. Now he's ready to share some industry luminaries and their perspectives with you. If you're interested in firearms, whether it be for shooting, for fun, competition, hunting, or self-defense, Kelly is here to share his wisdom and experience. Listen live for Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan, Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Sports Channel.
Get ready for the Get Down with Hurley Brown. Want to get inside of the minds of the players and coaches? We'll talk everything sports, but with a focus on the NFL, NBA, and college football. We'll review and preview the week's big games. We'll talk about the draft choices and free agents and go inside the teams for news, recruiting, and what's next from the colleges to the pro teams. It's the Get Down with Hurley Brown. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 noon Pacific on Voice America Sports.
Your internet flagship station for sports. Voice America Sports.
This is the Mike Abadir Show. If you want to call in today, we can be reached at 1-888-346-9144. That's 1-888-346-9144. Or send an email to mike@themikeabadirshow.com. Now, back to this week's program.
This is the Breeders' Cup preview show with Mike and Gino, and we will be joined immediately by our very next guest, Matt Dinerman. He is the track announcer at Emerald Downs. He's also the PA announcer for the Breeders' Cup for Friday and Saturday, and he also does track analysis on the in-house feed for Golden Gate Fields. Matt, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning, Mike. Gino, everything's great. Beautiful day here in San Diego, and obviously us racing fans have a lot to look forward to these next few days.
Well, Matt, I know you're busy, Matt. I want to try to let you get in and out as quick as you can, and if you get done with the race and you have a few minutes more for us, we'd love to have you. But, Mike, we know Matt's doing all sorts of pre-production, rundown stuff, because Matt's going to be involved with the big days, the next two. And as you mentioned, he's the PA announcer for the Breeders' Cup. So Matt, on Friday, we got the highlight of the distaff. I saw that just about an hour ago, you were hanging out with one of the top distaff contenders in Forever Unbridled. How do you see this race unfolding, Matt?
Interesting race, Gino. I think it's going to be a tactical race. You've got 8 runners in it, and Paradise Woods, I'd expect, is going to go to the lead. Stellar Win, the morning line favorite, she likes to be on the outside, and she draws post too, so I think that's pretty interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Victor Espinoza plays it out of the gate, because we're not used to seeing her being inside of runners. Usually she's outside, like we've seen with her and Vale Dory and her and Beholder. All those wins that she had, she was stalking the pace from the outside. And Victor may have to try to get out there. I think Paradise Woods is going to go to the lead. And third start off the layoff for Richard Mandela. I think she's very dangerous. And if she runs back to that Santa Anita Oaks performance, I think she's very, very dangerous in there. And I actually made her my top pick because I don't think there's a ton of early speed to go out with her. And I loved her work the other day. I think she's getting stronger since that lengthy layoff she had after the Kentucky Oaks. And she's going to try to wire the field, I think.
That is Paradise Woods, who on paper, I agree with you, looks like the lone speed in that one. So, Matt, with the distaff as the big race closing it out, how would you, from like a wagering standpoint, how do you play the races? Are you more of a win, exacta, double player, pick 3? What would your approach be with Paradise Woods in the distaff?
Yeah, I'd probably place a straight win bet on her. I'm not much of an exotics player, to be honest, but I'd probably put a straight win bet on her and use her in the late pick 4, something along those lines. And I probably will put Stellar Wind on there, but I think that's a race where you probably don't need to spread. I think the juvenile turf races are races that you may want to spread a little more.
And Matt, what do you think is the best betting sequence between Friday and Saturday?
Well, I'd have to say the pick 4s and the pick 5s, just because you're going to get such huge pools there. And really, when you look at some of the payouts over the years, they've been spectacular. Obviously, they're very, very difficult bets to hit. But in terms of the way I'd play it, bets like the pick 4, especially if you get a couple people in it, I mean, you can put in $50 and come out with a lot of money there. So I do think the races are going to be relatively formful this year. It looks like most of the races have clear-cut favorites, but I'd have to say those pick 4s and pick 5s with the guaranteed pools are pretty juicy. They're hard to turn down, especially if you're a horse player.
Yeah,
Matt,
that makes a lot of sense. Especially with the big fields, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. And really with these big fields, it's all about the trip. You guys know that. And really, sometimes the best horse doesn't always win because another horse gets a better trip. And there's very little margin for error. And you need luck on your side, I really do believe, to not only win any wager, but to win wagers in the Breeders' Cup. You need luck on your sides with these big fields. And you're going to get horses that are going to go off at prices that they normally would go off much lower in an average race. But this is the Breeders' Cup after all. And you're seeing superstar after superstar and post position by post position. So that's why you're going to get some good prices on some very good horses.
Before we let you go, Matt, I have to ask you about one of my favorite places. I had the opportunity a few years back to go up to Emerald Downs for a weekend. I got to experience what it's like there with some of the Friday night racing that they have. I was actually up there on the Long Acres Mile weekend, and man, just the experience, it's incredible. The fans, they are so enthusiastic. Everybody loves the track. Everybody loves the racing. What have your first few years been like up there at Emerald?
Oh, being at Emerald Downs has been spectacular. You know, this is a beautiful racetrack, beautiful setting, the mountains in the background. And like you said, Gino, you saw it for yourself. Very enthusiastic crowds, people that really enjoy the community, enjoy racing. And it really makes your job easier when you're working at the track, when you have so many good people around you that have so much enthusiasm. And that's what really carries the beauty of Emerald Downs is the atmosphere. So it's been an absolute blast. I'm very, very lucky and fortunate to be in the position I'm at for folks to give me the opportunity up there when I was young. And they took a shot with a youngster like me who didn't have a lot of experience. And luckily, I've gotten a lot more opportunities, and hopefully those opportunities keep coming because I'm very, very blessed, and there have been a lot of people that have helped me. So Emerald Downs is a lovely track, and no matter where I go next, if I go next anywhere, it would be very difficult to leave there just because Emerald Downs is such a great track. It's a gem of a track in its own way.
And you know, one of my goals in life is to take down that 20-cent pick 7.
There you go.
I love that wager, man. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting bet. You know, 20-cent minimum, and you can go deep in races. And sometimes those Emerald Down races play out to be pretty interesting. You've gotten some good payouts in that wager, buddy.
I was fed very well up at the Quarter Shoot Cafe. I can tell you that. So make sure to let the Steiners and all the good people up there know that Gino loves Emerald. It's one of my favorite racetracks, and I will definitely be back up there to visit sometime soon. And I'll come say hello to you, Matt.
Absolutely, buddy. Yep, Sally Steiner, she is an angel, and it's a wonderful place, the Quarter Shoot. But we'll be looking forward to seeing you up there, Gino, next time you come.
Okay, let's give us your plugs. Where can we find you on social media, and where should we be watching and listening for you next?
So you can follow me on Twitter at 3Colts Handicap. That's number 3 Colts Handicap. That's my Twitter handle there. And you can watch, of course, Emerald Downs to hear my live race calls. You can watch Golden Gate Fields. I'm on the track feed there, giving analysis tickets similar to what Megan Devine does at Santa Anita. And then, of course, this weekend, watch and wager on the Breeders' Cup, and you'll be hearing me doing the post parades and all sorts of spots throughout the afternoons of the Breeders' Cup here at Del Mar on their feet.
Outstanding. Well, Matt, we know your time is limited. You've got a lot going on. Congrats on all the success that you've had and being a part of the Breeders' Cup. We'll be listening for you, and we appreciate that you spent a few minutes with us.
My pleasure, Mike and Gino. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Enjoy your time in Del Mar.
Thank you.
So that was Matt Dinerman. That was excellent. You know what? He's really got a great demeanor to him. He's got an excellent voice.
You know, he actually sounds a little bit like Norman, doesn't he?
He does.
He sounds a little bit like Norman Cassie. They both sound very similar. And you know what's funny? They're just smart. He's a smart guy. Like the thing that I can tell you right immediately about Matt, he gets it. Whatever it is, you know, he gets it. He's a good guy. He's funny. Everybody likes him. I've never heard one person say a bad thing about Matt. Just an awesome guy, top to bottom, you know, and the Breeders' Cup did a great job hiring him to do some work with them. And I look forward to Matt continuing on. You'd have to imagine he's kind of the future right now when it comes to the voices of racing. He's going to be one of the voices of horse racing that we're going to be hearing for many, many years.
Yes, absolutely. And, they were talking about how, there was an older generation of announcers. And so it's nice to see that there's some younger blood in the game. And, you feel good about the fact that, there are younger people interested in the sport, and bringing a talent like that into the fold, starting him off at Emerald Downs. I love Emerald Downs, but I suspect that he's going to be at bigger circuits. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, and I know we have George waiting. He's going to be joining us in just a minute. So I'm going to just quickly give a couple selections that I have in a few of the races, and then we'll bring in George. We'll talk with him about a few, and then we'll close out the show with Craig. Mainly wanted just to hit the Breeders' Cup races. So on Friday, the Breeders' Cup races start in the 6th race with the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I really like September quite a bit in there. September was buried behind horses last time out, was trying to get through, had to alter course a few times, looking for a way, moved 2 from the inside, and came rolling, just missed. That was the first time going a mile. She stepped forward, even in slight defeat that day. I think you'll get around 5-1 or so on September. I expect Happily and Rushing Fall. They're going to be logical horses in there. And for me, the price is Dixie Moon. So I'll have the 10 on top in there with like the 2, 11, and the 12 underneath. Dixie Moon is the long shot who can kind of show a little speed and hang around a little bit.
Well, let's find out what George thinks, because I know that he spent a lot of time on the Friday card as well as the Saturday
Georgie.
card. So let's bring him in. George Ortuzar is an actor, a radio host, a track handicapper, a poker tournament MC, and a reality show star with Win Play Show. Georgie, good morning, my friend.
Good morning to both of you guys. It's been wonderful listening to the show. I'm so happy to be a part of it, and I'm excited about this weekend. It's just another, every weekend we wait for this Breeders' Cup with bated breath, and it never disappoints. It's the best weekend of the year for gambling, and I'm a degenerate gambler, so it fits in perfect with me.
Hey, this is like Christmas Eve, man. I'm so excited. Breeders' Cup Eve is one of those nights where I don't want to go to sleep. I just want to wake up and immediately get to the track and get things rolling. So let's get to it. I know you spent a lot of time on both Friday and Saturday cards. You have some interesting picks. Let's start with Friday and the Juvenile Fillies Turf Division.
All right, let's go right there. And you're right. I mean, for 2 weeks, every day I wake up and I go, is it the third yet? Is it the third yet? I can't wait. I mean, every day I get like my life. It's like, man, I can't wait till Friday. I can't wait. I can't wait. So let's go. I mean, a lot of people ignore the Friday card. The Friday card is the best, time to make some money, build that bankroll, and move on so that you can really hammer the Saturday card with the great pick 4s and the great pick 3s. In the Juvenile Fillies Turf, there's some horses, there's some fillies that to me look the best. They have the best thoroughgraph numbers. I'm an addict to the thoroughgraph numbers, and the ones with the best numbers are number 2 Happily, who comes in for Aidan O'Brien, who's just a beast. I mean, when he brings horses and fillies over here, and they just deliver year in and year out. This filly's done nothing wrong. I mean, she's won 4 out of 6. I like Lure as a jockey. Of course, when they get here, they get first-time LASIK, so that's a plus. And she's looking for 3 in a row, and I think she's got every reason to. The local filly, of course, is Rushing Fall for Chad Brown, another stud with Castellano, undefeated, always looks good. Actually has the best thoroughgraph numbers in the field, 6 and a 7. So on thoroughgraph numbers, those two kind of stick out. With Rushing Fall having an edge. But a filly that I'm going to be concentrating on, and it's going to be, and she's 12-1, is the one best performance. So for me to make money in this race, best performance has to come in the money. It's got to be first, second, or third. And I'm going to be betting exactas, trifectas, win money on. I'm not going to bet win on Happily or Rushing Fall, but I'm going to bet win on best performance number 1.
Well, I think you and Gino just gave me my try box. So I think I'm going to go 1, 2, 10, 11. Gino's pick is Aiden O'Brien's other runner, September. So 1, 2, 10, 11 sounds like a pretty nice try box to me.
And the way you can start the pick 4. Yeah, that's the first leg of that pick 4 too on Friday as we move from race 6 to race number 7, which is the second leg of the pick 4 sequence. So what do we do in the dirt mile, Georgie?
All right. Well, in the dirt mile, I think that home court advantage is is a big deal, and I don't think that Bob Baffert is going to be left behind in any of these races. More Spirit just came in with a spectacular number on the Thoroughgraph sheet. I think Bob Baffert has been pointing his charges for this weekend, and if More Spirit even comes close to that last number, she's going to annihilate this field. I mean, he just looks so good, and I was talking to Bob Baffert in Clocker's Corner a week ago, and he's just chomping at the bit, and this is one of his entries that he can't wait to unleash. And More Spirit, to me, just a major standout on sheet numbers, on home court advantage. I'm going to be using Iron Fist a little bit as a quasi long shot to be in the try, but a big win bet for me on number 6, More Spirit.
Well, and before we move on from that race, we had Norman Cassie and Richard Baltus on last week, and they both have runners in this race with Gato del Oro in number 4, Awesome Slew number 5. Not sure that they will end up on top, but perhaps that might be a good superfecta with More Spirit on top, using the 4 and 5 along with your Iron Fist in the the 3rd and 4th slots in the super. That could be a nice little payoff there.
Yeah, and I don't particularly like the Gato del Oro, but I mean, Richard Baltus is, he's been running really, really well lately. So, like I said, he's a hometown guy as well, and they seem to have a slight edge.
Let's move on to race, what is that, race 8, the Juvenile Turf Division?
Yeah, this is the race where I think some crazy 50-1 shot's going to win. This is the toughest race of the card. I mean, even on Thoroughgraph numbers, they're so evenly matched, and those are the races where you have to say, all right, I'm going to try to find somebody crazy. And a couple of the ones that I'm going to be keying on that are crazy out-of-the-box runners, I like First Time Pratt over here. Anyway, when we get First Time Pratt over here, we like betting on it here in Southern California. Pratt takes the call on this crazy 30-1 shot called Sands of Mali. Comes over here from Great Britain, has been, sprinting 6 furlongs, so a mile. It may be a little bit of a stretch, but last race was horrible against U.S. Navy flag. But the two wins before that garnished really good Thoroughgraph numbers. At 30-1, Pratt takes the call. I mean, he's a call that I'm going to be looking at. These are 2-year-olds. They can jump up and at any time and then run a monster race. And so 30-1, he's one of the guys I'm going to be looking at. I loved watching Encumbered at Del Mar. Encumbered really liked winning, had some really good Thoroughgraph numbers, is working well. The 2 dirt races are throwouts, but the 15-1 Encumbered for Simon Callahan, who is also on a tear, I think I'm definitely using as well. It's an all race. If there ever was an all race, it's this one. There's so much money to be made this weekend, and this is one of the races that if you're right, you're going to get paid.
And how do you close out the pick 4? We got about 30 seconds before we have to go to commercial. Race 9. What are your thoughts about the Distaff division?
I mean, I think Paradise Woods is gonna get an easy lead. But I mean, Stellar Wind's just a win machine, and I love Mr. Rodas, who's my favorite owner. John Sadler. They're gonna have Stellar Wind ready. And it's going to be even the late has a decent chance. The late's been running really well, but I'm going with the champ. I'm sticking with Stellar Wind.
George, give us your plugs. Where can we find you? Where can we follow you along? And what's going to be going on next for you?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be doing a radio show. We have a radio show every Saturday morning, and you guys are going to have to be on it one day as well. It's on AM 630. It's called the Morning Line Sports Show. You can also listen to it throughout the country on TMLsports.com. And we're going to be doing a show live from Vegas on Saturday. We're going to be at the Mandalay Bay over there, and hopefully we're going to have a great weekend. But listen to the show, TMLsports.com. You can listen to it there every Saturday morning. at 8 in the morning.
Outstanding. Well, we look forward to listening to that. And anytime. We'd love to join you, Georgie. Good luck with your personal wagers as well as the selections that you give out on air. We thank you for coming on with us. I know your time is limited, so best of luck. And we will talk to you soon. And we were going to take our next commercial break and be back with Craig Milkowski in a few moments.
Think you've seen everything there is to see in online television? Let us surprise you. Visit voiceamerica.tv today for sports, health, business, and more on demand 24/7.
Okay, sports fans, here's your opportunity to discuss football, America's favorite sport. On an annual basis, millions of people attend, watch, and listen to football, both pro and college. Ray Ellis Sports, an internet talk radio show, was developed with the fan in mind. Join host, former Philadelphia Eagles and Cleveland Browns strong safety Ray Ellis on Voice America Sports every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for exciting, interactive football discussions from the fans' perspective. Tune in every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific to Ray Ellis Sports right here on the Voice America Network, and let's talk football.
Want to experience football from the perspective of two former players who also have coaching experience? Tune in to Sports Info UM with Daryl Oliver and Sam Sword. We'll talk about the drafts, play-by-play, and even what's happening in the offseason. Daryl and Sam have the connections and the knowledge to bring you the inside stories of the game's past, present, and future. We'll cover the camps, on and off field, and everything else, football and beyond. Sports Info UM is heard Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on the Voice America Sports Channel.
Your internet flagship station for sports, Voice America Sports.
This is the Mike Abadir Show. If you want to call in today, we can be reached at 1-888-346-9144. That's 1-888-346-9144. Or send an email to mike@themikeabadirshow.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back to the Breeders' Cup Preview Show with Mike and Gino. And this hour has just been zipping along.
Flying by.
I know, it's just flying, and we move on to our next and final guest, which is Craig Milkowski, the chief speed figure maker for Timeform US. Craig, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Craig.
It actually is morning here in Del Mar still.
Yeah, you're right. And for guys like me, it's morning when it's 11, noon, 1 o'clock. Like it gets, this is normally still sleep time for me. So yeah, it's still morning. Still morning here. I've been lucky enough to have some interactions with Craig back on TVG. I think it was always like Sunday mornings after the big stakes races, or Wednesday mornings, where we kind of recap. Yep. Wednesdays, yeah, we'd recap all the stuff that happened over the weekend. We'd go through the figures and who looked good and who didn't. And Craig is as sharp as a handicapper as there is out there, and I really appreciate all the work he puts in. We're going to focus on the sprint, Craig, which from a pace and a Timeform US pace projector standpoint, I'm sure this was a fun race to do because they're going to be winging it.
Yeah, they are, and I was actually a little surprised. This isn't a race where we say the pace is going to be overly fast, but I think there's some real high-quality speed in here, so I don't think anybody's going to be stealing this race up front for sure, like kind of we saw last year. Definitely a weaker field last year than what we have this year, and I'm just really excited to see this one. These horses are going to be winging, so some really quality sprinters in here.
So this is the 8th race we're talking about on Saturday, the Breeders' Cup Sprint, which will be right in the middle of a lot of those Saturday exotics. It'll be in the end of one of the pick 4s. It'll be the second leg of one of the pick 6s. And from a wagering standpoint, before we specifically jump into this race, what are your plays mainly, Craig? How do you play the races? And on a Breeders' Cup weekend like this, are you more involved in pick 4s, pick 5s, win wagers, doubles? What's your approach?
I usually try to stick to one race at a time. I'm more a vertical guy, play win, exactas, occasional trifecta or super. But, on days like this, it's hard enough to get one race right with, for me at least. So I try to hit those races and go for a score there as opposed to trying to be right 4 or 5 times.
Well, let's see if you're going to be right in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. How does this race unfold to you?
To me, I think this comes down to 4 horses, and I'm not usually a guy who's looking to bet favorites, but I think the 4 top choices on the morning line are where the winner's going to come from. I think we have Drafong, Takaful, Roy H, and Imperial Hint. I'd be surprised if one of those 4 isn't your winner. What I think is going to happen is Drafong and Takaful are, at some point sooner rather than later, those 2 are going to hook up. They're both really high quality speed horses. They've earned really fast pace figures, speed figures, but I think it's going to take a little bit of toll on both of them. I'm not saying that they're going to collapse. I think they're going to be right there at the finish, but I'm looking for more of an outside flow in this race. So I'm going to gear my bets in here around Roy H and Imperial Hint, who both drew outside. They've both shown the ability to rate a little bit off the pace and pounce late, and they're probably going to be a little bit better price than those 2 as well. So those are the ones I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm with you on Roy. And I think one of the things with Roy is that race 2 back. If you don't watch the race, you see floated 6 wide. You don't really understand that it was actually the loose horse. Roy H would have won that race. He was floated completely wide all the way out. The 9, who's the 9 Ransom the Moon in the sprint, got a dream run through the inside, and then Roy came all the way back on and almost won again. He has just been a different animal this year, and from a pace standpoint, as you said, it just really looks like he's going to set a perfect trip.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he ran that huge race in the True North at Belmont on Belmont Stakes weekend. I think it was on the Friday. And he was just huge. And his 2 races since then are a little bit deceiving. Like you said, he probably should have won the Bing Crosby. It got a low speed figure for me, but I mean, that's to be expected. Drafong caused all kind of problems. The jockeys were a little bit hesitant there, and I think it affected the time of the race. And then last time, he just had the field over a barrel. It was an overmatched group, and they set a really slow pace for the track that day. And he still was able to just blow by and win as he wanted to. Once again, he didn't get quite as good a speed figure from me as he did in the True North, but I certainly don't think he's regressed at all, despite what the numbers say. He's a horse who can easily pop a 130 on our numbers. And if you have listeners that aren't familiar with him, a pretty good rule of thumb is you take 20 points off, and that's about what the buyer feed speed figure will be. Usually it's going to be in that range.
Craig, before I ask you about some other wagers on the card, within this race, I like to look at, outside of just the figures, and what the numbers say, I like to look for winners and consistency. A horse that's been very consistent lately and is a perfect 9 for 9 in the money at the distance. 7 of those wins out of the 9 is Whitmore. What are your thoughts about Whitmore's chances, and could Whitmore be used perhaps underneath?
I'm against Whitmore personally. I don't think he's ever really been fast enough. I actually saw him this year. I went to Oaklawn and watched when he was dominating there, and then he went to Baltimore and won the on Preakness Day, I think it was. But during all those wins, the fastest he ever ran was a 122. And like you said, hey, if you bet the best speed figure every race, you're going to go broke eventually, because that's not. You got to look a lot deeper than speed figures. But it's still a pretty strong thing for me to look and see who's the best. Who can win the race, and I just don't think he can beat horses this good. If you look at who he's been beating all along, there's just no killers in there. He hasn't faced fields like he's going to face on Saturday.
Very good. And now moving on to other races, every year when you look at the payoffs on Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday, you see that one or maybe even 2 races where the superfecta is paying, $150,000, $72,000. The trifecta is paying $14,000. We've had several guests on so far, and there's maybe a little bit of a hint of, this could be more of a formful BC event relative to past years. Which race would you identify as perhaps the most chaotic, where you may want to box 6 horses for a 10-cent super if they allow 10 cents? I'm not even sure. Or a big try box and expect some monster payoffs.
If I was going to do that, I'd probably stick to the juvenile races. I think that's where they look a little more wide open this year. One of the horses I really like in the juvenile filly turf on Friday is Best Performance, who I think she's 12-1 on the morning line. She had a brutal trip last time and still finished second. She drew wide, was wide on both turns on the inner course at Belmont. The pace was slow that day, and she still closed from well back to finish second, beating only a length. So she's one I like. I haven't looked too much at the juvenile filly and juvenile on Saturday, but I suspect I take that back. I just thought of the juvenile. Yeah, that one's not wide open. But so Bolt Oro probably towers over that field if he shows up. But yeah, the juvenile fillies I think has that wide open look, and the juvenile filly turf. Those are the ones I think.
So Craig, on the same lines, do you have a long shot special on either of the days?
A horse that kind of interests me on Friday in the Dirt Mile is Giant Expectations. He's a horse I think the distance is going to be right up his alley, and in Timeform U.S. past performances, we color code the pace for the races, and he's a horse I like to come from off the pace, and when you look at his past performances, I think every one of the last 5 or 6 races are just littered with blue fractions, which means he's been caught behind a slow pace. I mentioned the Roy H. race earlier where he was in that field and was back early and basically had no chance when they ran the really slow first quarter. He's a horse I think could do really well at a big price on Friday.
Craig Milkowski from Timeform US. When we get a few weeks deeper into the NBA season, we'll bring you on and we'll talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, and we'll see how Paul George and Carmelo are meshing with Westbrook. I love chatting basketball and following along with you on Twitter because I know you're a big OKC Thunder fan. Craig, thank you so much for joining us. Give us your plugs. Where can we find all your good information on social media?
Okay, on Twitter, I'm Timeform US Figs, just Timeform US with FIGS on the end, and then our company is Timeform US, and our website's www.timeformus.com.
Awesome,
outstanding.
Craig. It's for my money, it's the absolute best when you're talking about pace projecting, numbers and figures. You guys just really see the way that the races are going to unfold. So always appreciate all the work you put in, Craig, and thank you so much for joining us. I know you just flew in, so we caught you perfect timing, and enjoy your weekend out there. Make some money.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Craig. Enjoy your time at Del Mar, my friend.
All right.
That was Craig Milkowski. Outstanding stuff, Gino, giving us a lot to think about.
Are you ready? We better go rapid fire. You ready to rock?
Let's go rapid fire.
So 6th race on Friday we talked about a few times already, and the horse that we've had 2 people mention is Best Performance. I like September in there, Rushing Fall. Happily, those are obvious. Any horses for you in there, Mike, that we didn't mention?
I'm going to make it really simple. My strategy on all the turf races is go Euros and Chad Brown.
Okay. In the 6th race, I'm all over Accelerate. Love the way this horse is coming into the race. Like the cutback on our Delta figures at BrunoWithTheWorks.com. Accelerate looks very, very good in there. So I like Accelerate quite a bit. I was with Emily on Battle of Midway in the 8th race there, which is the 8th race on Friday. I think Voting Control is very interesting. That's the 8. This one got bumped around, got squeezed back at the start, ended up costing him the win. Once he settled, he came closing very well, and this is a live contender for Brown. He just fired a 4-star work for us. I think the 6 Massar is probably the one to beat, and I will not leave out Flame Away. Remember, folks, Flame Away, last week Norman Cassidy said this horse has a shot. They've been trying to get this one on the green. I would include Sands of Molly also at a price underneath. And then to close things out, how do you think the distaff's going to be, Mikey?
It's funny that all the handicappers that talked about this race left out Abel Tasman. So I think, the runner has to be used. You can't overlook Abel Tasman, but my top choice is Paradise Woods.
I absolutely love Elate in here. I think Paradise Woods you have to use in the exotics underneath based on the speed, but Elate is coming into this race awesome. Bruno just loves the way she has been developing in the mornings, and I thought when she busted through in her last race, it was so impressive. So we're going to rapid fire on Saturday. Now, the first Breeders' Cup race on Saturday is the third race. This is, to me, the race where I'm going to go all, because I think at the back of the early pick 5, I'm going to spread out a little bit, and I'm going to be using the third race. I'm going to spread out a little bit on Saturday, but in the fourth race, the only horses that I need are the 1 Heavenly Love and the 3 Princess Warrior. I'm just going to be too deep in there, and then in the fifth race for me, Mike, I'm going to single Lady Aurelia. I think she just is an absolute standout there in the turf sprint. So that's kind of going to be my approach to the early pick 5 on Saturday.
I will include Richard's Boy along with Richard Aurelia and hope
Richard
to get
Aurelia,
a price there.
Lady Aurelia.
Yeah. Giants shortstop Rich Aurelia. You can tell I listen to a lot of Giants games. So Lady Aurelia and Richard's Boy in race number 5.
And the sixth race, I'm all over Paula Silver Lining in here. I think if you just toss her last effort, she really fits nicely. Sky Diamonds is sharp. Karina Mia for me, it'll be those two. I am against Unique Bella on top. I will be using her underneath, but against on the win end. And then this is a sequence that we talked a little bit about yesterday, Mike. The 6th, 7th, and 8th race sequence, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th race sequence on Saturday is where you're going to have a lot of shorter price favorites. The 7th race, you're going to have Lady Eli. I think you do use her. I love the 1 War Flag in there for Shug. Those will be the 2 horses I use in race number 7.
Very good. And just because we got about 30 seconds to close in race 8, I am going to be going with Takaful and Imperial Hint. That's the number 7 and the number 10. Who you got?
I got Roy H. This is going to be a horse I really like. I'm 7-8 Takaful and Roy H. Roy H sits the trip. In the 9th race, we spoke about World Approval last week with Norman Cassie. I think he's the one to beat. Roly Poly is a little bit interesting in there. And I also think if you're looking for some prices, Blackjack Cack the 13, the race will go through Ribster. Bolt Dioro is, to me, the most likely winner on the weekend. I think he's an absolute standout and a single. Pretty formful in the 11th, Mike, with Highland Reel and Beach Patrol. And then to close things out, I do think Arrogate will bounce back, but I'm going to put West Coast on top of Arrogate. I think West Coast might be this year's Arrogate.
Collected is my selection. That is our Breeders' Cup preview show. Thank you for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, and best of luck for all your wagers. Have a fantastic weekend.
Thanks for joining us this week for the Mike Abadir Show. Please tune in again next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time for another show with Mike and his co-host, Gino Bacola, on the Voice America Sports Channel. Have a great week.